Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our workshop of January the 24th, the workshop to have a discussion about our new middle school and the naming of our new middle school. We don't actually have an agenda here, so I think we probably need to start off with Jennifer. She has basically just a description of how we go about the process, and if we could go over that, and then I'm going to go through the policy, and then we'll kind of go from there and let everyone speak. So,
good afternoon. Soliciting input from the community to name new schools is a long tradition in Dorchester School District 2. We have had extraordinary participation in this process as over 1,700 name suggestions were submitted for the new middle school. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, the media, and community groups for helping in this effort. It was amazing to learn of the many individuals, past and present, who have contributed to the education of our children. However, school names are not selected by the Board of Trustees based solely on the number of suggestions for a name. They are charged with taking many factors into consideration, such as the neighborhoods that will attend a particular school now and in the future, as well as the geographic location and the history connected to the various areas of our community. As the new middle school is completed and the neighborhoods are assigned to attend the district's newest school, those students, parents, and staff will be an integral part of establishing their school culture.
thank you, Ms. Passmore. And I'm just going to read our board policy as well. The board is responsible for naming of school facilities. Naming a school is a matter of great importance. It is a matter that deserves thoughtful attention from the board and the administration. Personal prejudice or favoritism, political pressure, or temporary popularity should not be an influence in choosing a school name. Generally, the board prefers to name the school facilities for recognized geographical areas. Under certain circumstances, the board will consider requests from school and community groups to name a portion of a building, a single building on a campus with multiple buildings, or a specific area on a campus for a person. The proposed name should have specific significance and/or the person has made an outstanding contribution to the school or school system. The superintendent will prepare recommendations, and the board will approve a procedure for the board to follow when naming the school properties or portions thereof. Naming of facilities by gift. The board may approve naming opportunities in cases where a significant financial gift has been accepted for the district by the board in exchange for permanent or temporary naming of a district's facility or portions thereof. The gift can be designated for new construction or for naming of an existing facility. So this is the policy, and what Ms. Passmore just read is basically our approved and proposed procedures that we used in naming. And as you know, we have solicited input from the community by establishing our online version where you were able to go out there and put your names in there that you thought would be a good name for that new school. And at this point, I think we want to start off by recognizing the people that are in the audience that would like to come up and talk to us about a specific name that they think that the school should be named of and why they feel this is important to name this school of this. So we're going to begin with Miss Barbie Ross.
Good evening. I'm here to speak with you about naming the new middle school in honor of Andrea Freeman. Andrea and her husband were tragically lost in a 2020 car accident along with her mother-in-law, Meredith Freeman, who was also a DD2 teacher. Both Andrea and her husband are products of the DD2 school system. I'm going to share an excerpt or two from the book that was created in honor of Andrea. So this is a book that the staff created for her. It is filled with stories from parents, students, and staff. So I'm going to try not to cry. Pardon? Oh, sorry. Andrea was a beloved occupational therapist in Dorchester School District 2. Andrea created positivity within the workplace and within all the students and with all the students and colleagues who were blessed to work with her. Her infectious personality was larger than life. Andrea's presence could be felt the moment she entered a building, and her colleagues would look forward to each encounter with her. Her passion for her work and students was evident by the countless number of families that she impacted. Her growing knowledge in the field of occupational therapy, her willingness to love and care and go beyond the walls of her school building to assist families. She spoke to students and colleagues and filled people with fun, joy, and excitement. Her faith-filled words and her enveloping hugs would brighten the darkest of days. Those of us who had the great privilege to work with her will forever be changed, and she will be greatly missed. This is from a parent. We met Miss Andrea on our tour of Beach Hill Elementary School. She happened to be walking down the hall, and when she found out my student would be getting OT there once he started kindergarten, she whisked us off to her room and excitedly showed him and his twin sister her Star Wars toys. The student and Miss Andrea were instant buddies, and I knew we had found our school. Over the years, she worked diligently with him on his pencil grip, then his handwriting, and finally his computer skills. During one particular difficult IEP meeting, she noticed that I was having a hard time and offered to explain more in depth with what we were facing with his delays. And once I had time to digest it all, she had cleared her schedule on a Friday afternoon, because that was my day off, and sat with me in explaining in detail what we were facing. When we moved here from Michigan in 2017, Andrea was one of the first people we met. My husband was still loading the moving truck while my student and I closed on the house. We arrived Thursday night, closed Friday morning, and met the Beach Hill team Friday afternoon. Andrea was there. She was obviously the welcome party. From the very first hug in South Carolina to her last day with us on earth, she brought joy, love, and compassion to our family. So many laughs, so much fun. We will forever cherish both her friendship and her professional knowledge. So, these pages are filled with special notes and memories from special education teachers, speech pathologists, school psychologists, OTs, PTs, administrators, district leadership, parents, and others across Dorchester School District 2 that speak to who she was as a therapist, colleague, and friend. Because Andrea was larger than life, any words used to capture who she was and what she contributed to students, parents, and educators would be insufficient. To her DD2 family, she was simply the best. In every sense of the word, we feel strongly one of the ways we can best remember and honor her is to name the new middle school after her and her mother-in-law, another amazing educator in Dorchester District 2. They were both embodied the district's core values and represent the very best. I would also like to note that 81% of the teachers in the state of South Carolina are women. I'm willing to bet that DD2's numbers mirror that statistic. We have 25 schools within our district, but we have not one named for the countless female educators in DD2. I think Andrea and Meredith are the perfect women to bestow the honor of being the first females to have their name on one of our schools. I'll share this book with you so you can look through. Please look at the pictures because they speak volumes of who she was.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Before we move on, is there anyone else in the audience that may want to speak on the same name, Meredith and Andrea Freeman? Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to William Penn Jr.
How's everyone? I'm here advocating for William Penn Sr., happens to be my dad. He dedicated 38 years to District 2 as a teacher, coach, administrator, and mentor. Thousands of kids he impacted, hundreds of teachers, and he was a mentor to numerous principals that have their own schools today. I sat and pondered, what I should say and everything like that. I guess it goes to investment and returns. So he invested 38 years to the district. Well, you find out your returns after you're retired, and everybody sort of fades away. Well, I can't count how many times his returns come to him in a store, at a football game, or just walking around. I remember one time that a guy ran all the way across the store just to shake his hand and said, hey, Coach, you remember me? We did this. We won these state championships, and they had a blast. You don't get returns like that unless you impact people in a positive way. On the other side of that, there was another gentleman that came across and said, Mr. Penn, you paddled me. He goes, because of that paddling, I became a better person, and now I'm a asset to the society instead of a hindrance. So, I look at it as investments and returns, and he gets returns nonstop. I get returns just by being affiliated with him as his son. I can go on and on. In the community, as a kid, he didn't have to, but he coached at Somerville. And if everybody knows Somerville is huge on athletics, huge in education. Well, he still made time to coach my Little League team. He made time to be there for church basketball, to be a coach of church basketball. He still, up until COVID, was volunteering at the food kitchen at Cathedral. That's just the person he is. He's a giver. He gets a joy out of giving. Just recently, he was honored as a humanitarian for education by Councilman Aaron Brown, where you had Mayor Waring there and a bunch of dignitaries there honoring my dad. So when it comes to respect, he has respect on the highest, which I would say Mayor Waring's the highest. And people that aren't so fortunate and maybe having a hard time, they respect him still. His whole career was built on 4 things: loyalty, integrity, honesty, and hard work. I can't think of any school or institution who wouldn't want that as part of their title. This school was named after a person who kept it real. He never batted an eye. He never led astray. He always was by the book. There are some people in here who had a chance to work with my father, and they say good things about him. So that makes me feel good. So I didn't really have to think about what I was going to say. I just had to put it all together. And I just appreciate you giving me the time to speak and be considered that my father's name, William Penn Sr., will be selected for the new middle school. It's kind of ironic that Mr. Powers, my principal, and when he got there, we got the name Flowertown, the Busy Bees, back in, I think it was like 1978, 79. So he was my principal. So this is kind of, I guess, one of those things that he's getting ready to retire, and I get to speak in front of him for one time. So, but thank you for listening, and yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Y'all have a great evening.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. And I'd like to say that Coach Penn was at Somerville High School when I was going to Somerville High School, so he's been around a long time.
That was his grandfather, I think.
No, it wasn't. You need to
Wasn't
stop.
Mr. Penn's grandfather?
So, and again, before we move on, is there anyone else that would like to speak on the name of William Penn? Okay. Then I think at this point, was there anybody else that has a name that they want to speak on that I don't have a card for? We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. We've got a small group, but we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to tell us about their name of choice. Nope? Okay. Mr. Pye, would you like to then give us the recommendations from the district?
We have had a lot of discussion, and of course, there's some other names that weren't brought forth today. There's on the list that I know very well, that I could speak highly with. And of course, Mr. Penn, I did not work for him. I worked with him. And a prince of a person. Yes, a good administrator, a good teacher, a good mentor, good coach, all those things. But his top trait was the good person he was. He really was good through and through, the calmest, easiest going person. I had lots of issues sometimes with a personnel problem, and I called him for personal advice. You know the person, I can't really get into their business, but you know them, and I know you know about this. What would you recommend? Nailed it every time. And when I knew that he saw how hard I was struggling And he just said, well, it's what it is. It's you're doing the right thing for the right reason, even though I know you don't think so, but and didn't elaborate. But I knew he spoke the truth and spoke it well. So I appreciate that. So as I said, there's other names. I didn't know Meredith, but Meredith worked for me. I do know her. She was one of the finest teachers that I have ever worked with. I mean, I did not know her daughter-in-law. I knew of her and how wonderful she's been spoken. The son was, I think, one of my students also, and Mary started with me. She originally started teaching at Knightsville and then moved over to Flowertown. She was one of those teachers that I put all the struggling children in. She had more children than the other teachers because she taught them all. She knew no difference in color, no difference in anything. She just was the epitome of a public school teacher that you would just have to say she had the characteristics of a missionary. She took every child that were in her lap, and she would hold them in the lap to calm them down. When she taught first grade for me, and she taught compensatory first. Those were the students that the old junior first, where we held them back a year to give them some maturity. And they were rambunctious. There was a reason for that. The maturity level was so bad, but she brought into focus. I gave her a child, one quick story, towards the end of my time there. And I took the child in, and I said, Mary, I've tested this child, and this child is very weak in reading, but I have no doubt this child may be gifted. Only in the first grade, but they've been in like 7 schools in the last 6 months. And this child, over a period of 2 years there in kindergarten and first grade, they just hadn't had an opportunity, and it's a very dysfunctional family life. We're the only advocates we can have, and I want you to do your Mary Freeman dance for this child, and let's bring them around. Mr. Pye, it's already like February, and you know, this is our critical learning month. If he's that far behind, it's going to be difficult. And I don't want you having, I'm going to give it all, but I think you might be asking too much this time. She came down, sure enough, a week later and said, Mr. Pye, it's much deeper hole than you ever said. I said, Mary, I put my arm around, I'll never forget. If anybody can do it, you can. So before we throw the towel in, I will accept it. At the end of the year, I know you've given it all and the child can't do. We'll put our heads together about what we are going to offer to help this child get caught up. He can't help, he's so far behind. Have you heard from the parents? No. We are the parents. So Mary, you and I are going to have to do this. If I have to teach, I can teach him. I'm going to put him in a couple of the intervention rooms he doesn't qualify for. Don't anybody listen on this, and they're going to have you as the main teacher, and between 3 or 4 teachers, this child will be reading. You understand? And I'm willing to spend time with him myself each day. We did. The child went on, was at grade level by May. 3 months, so it was a miracle. The child did turn out to be very gifted. We lost touch once again, the child was uprooted and moved away from us. So it's the spirit that all teachers should have. Don't give up on any child. Every child counts. Every child is significant. So for no other reason, if her daughter-in-law is what I'm hearing was a tenth of what she was, fantastic people. So I have that said. But all that said, I'm still looking at because I'm all these people. So I don't want to be Solomon. I just don't feel comfortable doing that. I did bring it to my staff, and of course it was brought to me about the district policy that favors geographical significance. Well, there were several names I thought would qualify, but at the end of the day, from some research, we really narrowed it down to only 2 names. And that's something to do with Beach Hill. So maybe Beach Hill Middle, I think, was one of the suggestions. And then East Edisto is the name of the property that's on all the deeds. Most of the property that's developments, I'm still dealing with them, even though they've changed hands 50 times. That seems to be the significant name. And I want to think the Edisto Indian tribe lived somewhere in this area, Ridgeville and Harleyville and down this way at some point many, many years ago. That's the only historical data I can find. So that I was, based on what my team thought, and you asked me to get that, their recommendation was to stay to one of the geographical significant names. I'm only saying that, but I'm happy if it ends up any of these 3 individuals. I can think of nobody more deserving than them. So I feel real good about those 5 names, but I'm following the policy and what you asked me to do.
Those, was there another name? 5 names? That was only 4 names.
I'm sorry, 4 names.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we didn't miss something there. Okay, so we have Meredith and Andrea Freeman Middle, William Penn Senior Middle, Beach Hill Middle, East Edisto Middle. Now, I've just got a question on the Beach Hill, only because I did a little research myself, and the on the Beach Hill is, I don't know where, but somehow the spelling of the name went from B-E-A-C-H to B-E-E-C-H. Do we know how or why that happened?
We don't know
that
why.
way?
The school petitioned some years ago, and it never went anywhere to change it back to the original name, that beach, like in beach, because it was the road to the beach. It's how you went. It's a tree. The beach tree. Well, that would be B-E-E-C-H. But we were told it was the 61 was the only way to get from this area to Folly Beach. And that was the road to the beach. And we got that name. And maybe that's how it started, and somebody just changed it
Well, if you
from
look at
that.
the old
That could be it.
maps, if you look at the old maps,
B-E.
61 is called Beach Road, I think is what it
Beach
was,
Road.
and it's spelled B-E-A-C-H. But then as you get on further down the road past Beach Hill, somehow it changes to B-E-E-C-H, and maybe that's where you're coming in with the beech tree, because that's where the significance came in.
Thank you for saying that. I did hear that story. I forgot that.
Yeah, I noticed the difference on the maps, but I didn't know why that change happened. So does anyone have any kind of comments or any discussion on any of these names?
I know one of the board members had talked to some of our principals, particularly the 2 at Oak Brook and Oak Brook Middle, about the names being shared and what were the pros and cons. And I found it interesting because I knew that to be the case, because my wife was once the principal of Oak Brook Elementary. And when we were doing this, first thing she told me is, you don't need to do that. I can't tell you the confusion we have between the 2 schools. If there was a fight at Oak Brook Middle, the parents were calling me wanting to know why there was a fight at Oak Brook Elementary, and I didn't tell them about it. The mail was going back and forth to 2 different schools. I would suggest you not do that, because they were right together now, not even behind each other. They were together. So that was that. But then there was the pro side of it, is the kids just associate the school being the next one. The concern I had is with the attendance areas we're drawing, all children at Beach Hill will not necessarily go to the middle school, because the middle school's serving a greater area, and there'll be neighborhoods not in that mix, as well as some of them in the 5th grade will be scheduled to go. They're already at Gregg, and I think all of them will either stay at Gregg or go to the new school, depending on how close they live to what school.
I just wanted to ask real quick, you said that you talked to your district leaders too, and these were the 2. These were kind of the 2, or was there another?
That's all I heard.
No.
Y'all were in the room. Ms. Radcliffe, you want to add to what I said?
Those. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Beach Hill or East Edisto.
Mr. Farnsworth?
Yeah, it's actually, and I don't know that I've lost sleep on it, but it's actually a more difficult decision than you think. Naming a school, because the legacy of that is really difficult, and it makes it even more difficult when we have phenomenal people and some of the names. Ms. Freeman, Coach Penn. There was another one. We had a Medal of Honor winner that came up. First Sergeant Solis, that came up to me multiple times, and it just makes it so difficult, because the hard part is they're all amazing in their own right. And so how do you go down those roads of figuring out, well, who's amazing to name a school after? So my thought is I absolutely agree. I think the policy is absolutely correct. I like naming it after a region, after an area. Would it be, I think it's probably appropriate for us to ask would you be able to look at these names and the ones we've heard from? Because you are able to name, it's a middle school, so there will be several wings of the middle school, the library. There's certainly naming availability of those areas. Do you think the district could look at some of those names that we've gotten and be able to still honor those folks with those types of naming areas?
Per the policy, it actually says that. It actually says that we do have that authority to do that as well, on-campus buildings or whatever.
Yes, that's what I would love to see.
Libraries in a school can be dedicated to a person that served in that school, such as in case of Mr. Penn was at Somerville High School and Gregg campus mainly. Was it mainly those two? He was once at Alston too, wasn't he? Yes, okay.
Yeah, so again, just an amazing legacy, and we want to be able to honor that, and so I think we can, and so I would put that back on the district. As far as the regional names, so Beach Hill, of course, I like Beach Hill Middle, but it seems silly, but I think the outside community doesn't necessarily understand. I think there is a little bit of confusion that occurs when you have a Beach Hill Elementary and then a Beach Hill Middle School. Even with Alston Bailey, we've got Alston and then Alston Bailey. So they're different, even though the same campus, they're different. So you don't have as much confusion. So that would be I think Beach Hill would be the easy one. But I will tell you this, East Edisto, I tend to actually gravitate towards East Edisto. I did a little research. Of course, the river is the primary driver. So that area, so for folks who don't know, that area, the development zone that started decades ago was named the East Edisto Development Complex. The land out there is still for sale through East Edisto because it's east of the Edisto. Of course, the Edisto comes from the Indian tribe. They absolutely had a presence, more so Virginia, North Carolina, and then down into a bit of South Carolina. So they certainly had the presence. But again, East Edisto, it's that entire region, it's that area. I think it would just make sense. Again, I'm just saying my personal preference. I don't know the way others feel, but I could see that being, and it just kind of rolls off your tongue, East Edisto Middle School. EEMS, the initials aren't crazy. You got to look at that stuff. Again, that's silly, but there are some that we got, and you're like, oh, that's not going to work when you do the initials. So, yep. So that's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farnsworth. Ashley, did you have?
I was just going to ask, so on the Oak Brook campus, do all of the students from the elementary school go to the middle school, or is there, do you know? The majority?
We've changed those attendance lines. We changed them a lot last year. We moved several hundred out. So,
Well, that's
I don't know. I think just moved the whole neighborhood. So my guess is they're coming either out of Pye or coming out of Fort Dorchester Elementary. All three of those switch back and forth some of the neighborhoods as we grow. Who's Laurie? Are you familiar? Oh, the majority definitely does. I can tell you the majority does, but and I'm trying for the life of me to think of, there might be an apartment complex or something kind of there in the middle that could be going to Oak Brook, but not to Oak Brook Elementary.
I understand what you're saying too about that not all of the elementary students at Beach Hill will go to Beach Hill Middle. Do we know the percentage, a rough idea? I know that's coming up in the next meetings. I did reach out to the principals at Oak Brook Elementary and Oak Brook Middle today just to get their feedback on having the same names and whether or not there was confusion and that sort of thing. And they both said that, in their opinion, it created a sense of unity.
That was
a
that
community
was the
unity. I think the word they both used actually was unity, which I thought is a nice word, kind of a nice feeling for the joint campus. So,
Mike, could you answer the question about the first question about the neighborhoods? Are all of Oak Brook Elementary children going to Oak Brook Middle? but a large number will be going to Greg. But out of that fifth grade class, 47 of them are going to Rollins out of the fifth grade. So that's, you pull them from the number, it's still a large fifth grade. Then you've got, I would say they might have 60% going to Beach Hill.
I kind of like the way we did Austin Bailey, just because we were able to incorporate the Austin name and the Bailey name in there, although I don't think any of these names kind of fit together like that puzzle, because it still kept that unity by having that Austin in the middle school and Austin Bailey in the elementary school. Still kind of made them feel like they were one, but it was different, so there was no confusion. But like I said, I don't know how any of these names would fit together. But Mr. Farnsworth, I do agree with you on the fact that I think that we should follow the policy and base the names on the geographical area, and then work towards doing the individual parts in the school to honor some of the great educators that we have. So, and I mean, we could do that with even others, not only these ones that were mentioned, because we know we've had lots of great educators that are no longer with us, and so we may even want to look into that even just a step further. So, does anybody have any other comments or suggestions? Or Ms. Robinson, Mr. Guthrie, Ms. Crosby? No, Mr. Mitchum? Sorry, I didn't mean to skip over you.
No problem. I'm not opposed to the suggestions that have been made. I looked back, and there was one mention of East Edisto, and we're talking about rivers and things of that nature. Things of that nature. You know, there were a lot more. And I'm not advocating or anything, but there were a lot more suggestions for Ashley River Middle School. I'm just saying from a standpoint of, for lack of a better argument. But again, in my opinion, the school name is very important, but what's more important, as we all know, are the people that are inside of our students and our teachers. But yeah, it's a tough decision. And I know we've not done the naming, or we say now that can't name it after individuals. I don't know how long ago we named Austin Bailey, and I know that the Bailey was a name
5 years ago, wasn't it?
5 years ago.
About 5.
So I'm just saying, just keep all that in mind, because there's a lot of choices out there. So again, I'm not opposed to East Edisto in any way, shape, or form. So that's my 2 cents worth.
What was the one that you said, Ashley River?
I think there's an Ashley
There's
River. in
Ashley River
Charleston.
Accredited Art School down on 61.
Okay,
Now you got Drayton Hall.
okay, we'll scratch
But
that.
there's an Ashley River in Charleston.
Right there by, when you get going down 61, just before you get to Sam Rittenberg.
Yep. Yeah, because I'd like that one too, and then I saw that they had one in Charleston County.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Wimberly, do you have something else you want to add? Mr. Pye?
Nope.
Okay. We appreciate all of the input. Thank you all for coming, and we'll be discussing this further in our board meeting. So I would like a motion to end this workshop.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Guthrie, seconded by Ms. Crosby. Any further discussion? All in favor? 7-0. We're adjourned.